Hello, welcome to Being Me with Chelsea. This is a place for those who want to explore life, explore the meaning of life, and learn to embrace all the complicated layers it is to be human. I'm Chelsea Walsh, and I am a writer on the platform Substack, chelseawalsh.substack.com. And each week I write an essay, something from my own life in hopes of normalizing the human experience. So I hope that if my vulnerability at least helps one other person feel less alone, then it's worth me being uncomfortable when I write so transparently. Today's podcast episode is going to be connected to the essay Circle of Wounds, Part 1. So if you have not read that essay or listened to that essay, please push pause now and listen to that or read that before you come back to today's podcast. Each week, I will be writing an essay and then I'll be podcasting, sort of a debrief to give some more information about what I was thinking or some fun tips and tricks or things that kind of come from my therapist lens and wellness coaching lens of life. So, the reason why I chose the name Circle of Wounds is humans have all been wounded. There's not one human in this world who's exempt from being hurt by another human. And when we're hurt, we will go to extreme measures to try and reconcile that hurt, that pain. So we will do extreme things to try and protect ourselves. We will react in a way so that person never hurts us again. We will have these maladaptive ways. Sometimes we see this with ghosting or shutting things down, right? Like, I'm just going to shut it down and ignore that it never, pretend like this never happened and bury it deep. We all have our ways of protecting ourselves from being hurt and wounded. And I will say it again, because you are a human, you will be hurt and wounded by another human. So, my fifth grade experience with sweet, sweet, sweet Envy, not so sweet Envy, who asked me to the movies, was probably very vulnerable to ask a girl to the movies. And I said yes when I really meant no. My no was rooted in my own wounds, my own wound of being molested as a child. And I'm thinking because I was going through sort of puberty at that time and having my body change and things like that, I started getting really vivid nightmares of that incident that happened to me. I had a really big traumatic response where it was like, if I go to the movies with this kid, I'm going to die. Like, I cannot do it. And even though I was a very empathic, painfully shy, sweet kid, I knew that I had to hurt his feelings because there was no way it was going to happen, that I was going to be in the dark alone with a boy. Never going to happen. So my wound that had nothing to do with this boy impacted this boy, and this boy wanted to get revenge, right? Like, didn't want to feel the feelings that came with rejection or embarrassment or whatever I evoked in him. He wanted that to stop, or he wanted to feel another feeling that wasn't that. And his behavior was to sort of torture me, to put a caterpillar down my shirt and then smash my shirt, which was horrifying to me as a child. When that happened to me, I had a new wound, a wound that gave me a gift. And the reason why I say it's a gift is because I had not learned how to say no. I was such a little shy girl. I would, like, whatever happened, just happen. And I just kind of went through life. And at this point, I learned how to say no. Fifth grade was a really hard year for me. So my parents' divorce started when I was in fourth grade. It was carrying over in fifth grade. The school that I went to had some rough kids in it. And I kind of referenced my ear being ripped from getting in a physical fight, which I probably would not have stood up to myself and had like a literal physical altercation had I not been gifted that another layer of self-protectiveness that came from the caterpillar incident. I had lots of maladaptive coping. I wrote a very shameful second part to this, Circle of Wounds Part 2, where I talk about my own reactivity and wanting a behavior of another to stop. I can think about times where I've hurt others and I feel terrible for those things. And those were 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago. And it still feels shameful and ick. If you could see my leg right now, I'm doing like restless leg syndrome because it feels so vulnerable to even acknowledge what an asshole I had been rooted in my own wounds growing up. I laugh because everybody who's a human has done something that they're not proud of. Everybody who's a human has hurt another human. And my belief system, and the reason why I write and the reason why I'm probably in this helping profession, is to help us to understand human behavior, to help us to understand the thoughts that we have, to help us to be empowered to choose differently. When we can pause and go to the wound, we have an opportunity to break the circle. So this circle keeps happening until there's a pause. How do we pause? I'm going to teach you. Wounds are a shortcut to our healing. Every time a wound gets hit, it is a shortcut because it's proof. A wound is proof that there has been damage, that there has been hurt. You aren't just wounded for no reason. So every time you have that like visceral response of like that ouch, that ew, that yuck, like ugh, whatever that is, that big reactivity that is out of proportion to whatever it was, the precipitating event, that is proof that there is an unresolved wound. When we know there's an unresolved wound, we have an opportunity to heal it and acknowledge it, or we can react and throw caterpillars down people's shirts or pull earrings or do other asshole moves that I and you and all humans are guilty of. So going back to that wound, I once spent a year, and I hated it, by the way, of saying thank you every time my wound got hit. Anytime somebody offended me, it was like, okay, thank you. And then running to safety to journal about what is familiar about this. What does this bring up to me? Where is the pain? I did it over and over and over and over again. And I learned that the wounds are mine, right? Other people might have done those to me, but it's my responsibility to tend to them. No different than if I got in a car accident and my body had damage, I would go to the hospital and tend to my body, right? I would fix a broken arm. I would fix a broken rib. Medical doctors would do whatever they needed to do to help me. And I have that same responsibility for the emotional internal parts of me. It's my responsibility to help assist myself in healing, even though these did not come from me. I mean, some did actually, probably, right? I've wounded myself. I've made terrible decisions in my lifetime that have not been great, or I've hurt myself more. So, my food for thought for today, what I want to leave you with, is to be gentle on yourself. When you imagine those wounds, or you feel those wounds, or you feel that vulnerability, or you notice that overreactivity, take a breath. Acknowledge the ouch. And know that there's an opportunity here for you to show up differently. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Being Me with Chelsea. I hope you found this helpful. And if you would like to read my essays or hear more, please consider being a paid or a free subscriber or sharing these articles or this podcast. Or if you'd like to make a one-time donation, feel free to buy me a coffee and I will drink it on this video. But more than anything, I hope that you take away a little bit of softness today and that when you re enter the world after listening to this podcast, that maybe, just maybe, you'll be a little bit more gentle with yourself and others. Thanks for listening. Bye.